Good afternoon, and welcome to the online demonstration of Empower's content creation. You're probably watching this video right now because you know the biggest time wasters with PowerPoint, like the back of your hand, and you're probably just tired of them. Like the nerve-wracking process of creating and recreating slides, or the challenge of creating and formatting charts, or the tedious and aggravating task of creating and maintaining reports which contain an abundance of links to data in Excel. Or maybe it's the formatting tasks, which always takes much longer than expected and can make even the most experienced PowerPoint users feel in despair, especially when under the severe time constraints when creating presentations. Why do we all have these challenges? There are two reasons. First, the results have to be really good. Mediocrity is never enough, especially when it comes to creating great, compelling presentations. After all, presentations are supposed to open doors for selling and communicating ideas, products and services, and brands. We all know that, and that's why a lot of time is invested in making presentations so convincing, appealing, and with the correct facts. And that's not easy, especially for people who have limited design talent or analytical or communication skills than others. Secondly, we do most of our presentations in PowerPoint. A PowerPoint is not designed exclusively for business presentations. In other words, it simply doesn't bring all of the functionality what we actually need to create compelling business presentations quickly and easily. Complex slides and diagrams, in particular, have to be created manually and require time-consuming formatting. What is the result for you, but also for your company? If you consider all the employees who regularly have to create presentations, diagrams, and reports, or who work a lot with PowerPoint, it's simple. A lot of time is regularly wasted on creating and embellishing presentations. And if the regular working hours are not sufficient for this, then overtime has to be worked in order to finish the results, which only lead to stress and frustration. And in case you're thinking right now that the effects won't be that massive, you should reconsider, because they actually are. According to our PowerPoint study conducted with Nielsen and more than 1,100 respondents, each employee spends an average of 7 hours per week using PowerPoint. Of those 7 hours, 37% of their time is spent on just formatting the work. That's right, 2.5 hours per week, or 10 hours a month, or about 100 hours a year. And here we've already taken into account absences already, pretty generously. It's during this time nothing new is actually achieved. No real value is created. We're not leveraging or exploiting the potential to really achieve something in the interest of the company, like improving a convincing argument, a valid analysis, or telling an interesting story, right? These are the real items that contribute to building a more successful presentation. Instead, much time is spent on formatting, something that's already there. Look at the math from your perspective, and then multiply it by the number of users who regularly work in PowerPoint in your company and ask yourself, how much longer can you and your entire company afford to waste in this manpower gap and potential? In this video, we will demonstrate how Empower users working in PowerPoint can elevate, streamline, and maximize their efficiency at creating compelling presentations. The goal is to never waste time on small-scale, cumbersome work when creating Microsoft PowerPoint presentations. We achieve this by integrating the content creation software directly into the application itself, and we use this solution to pick up exactly where Microsoft PowerPoint falls short with limited functions. You can see the integration here in PowerPoint. An additional ribbon is inserted into PowerPoint. It's prominently placed between the file and start, and it contains all of the functions a user needs to create convincing presentations with maximum efficiency. Content creation will help your organization in the following areas: chart creation, business report creation and editing, and with formatting tasks. Let's move on to topic number 1. Diagramming. From our research study conducted with Nielsen that I mentioned earlier, 43% of the more than 1,100 respondents said that creating diagrams in PowerPoint was the biggest time waster. It's no wonder either. Many chart types are not handled by PowerPoint. Important functions are also difficult to access or missing completely. And formatting work on charts for employees can just be a horrific task. With content creation, you can create all types of business charts easily and quickly. These are, for example, bar and column charts. Here we have line, area, circle, and point diagrams, and moreover, complex charts as well. This example includes a legend in the chart as well as growth and deal arrows, which can also be inserted and controlled via the software. All these things native PowerPoint is ill-equipped to handle. Waterfall charts are also frequently used in everyday business, for example, to show a financial time progression. Again, PowerPoint lacks many features. For example, it can't even show 2 or more data series in a waterfall. But this is an absolute necessity for many employees in finance and business professionals, a controller, analysts, accountants, and managers. Gantt charts are also an important tool for many business professionals, project workers, and planners. As PowerPoint does not provide the user with Gantt charts, they are on their own, wasting time to assemble and build their own subsequent edition. Let's move on to the creation of such diagrams and take this slide, which is empty except for a content placeholder. We select the placeholder, then select the Elements button in the Content Creation ribbon, and then the Charts option. Here you will now see a thumbnail overview of each type, and you can select the type that you need. Let's take a waterfall chart. After a click, it now inserts into the placeholder on the PowerPoint slide and fills the placeholder exactly. The advantage is you don't have to worry about positioning and resizing the diagram on the slide, because the diagram sits directly in the placeholder, and the diagram, including all of the additional elements, adjusting itself within the placeholder so that the diagram always looks perfect. And this effect always remains, even if you change the layout. In other words, you simply don't worry about the size and position of the diagram on the slide and can continue working. You can already see that this diagram looks and behaves a bit different than native PowerPoint diagrams. Content creation diagrams are always loaded directly as soon as a slide with the diagram is selected. The advantages of this are that the user is always shown directly where edits can be made. As they move the mouse over the area, the software automatically highlights and identifies the areas that can be changed. Furthermore, one saves the click of having to select an editable object before entering an editing menu with a second click. So one click is enough to get all of the editing options for an editable object. For this chart, this means that you can do simple formatting work directly in the chart, such as changing the color, the font size, or font formatting, but also the text alignment. It is also possible to show and hide the values as well in the column totals. At the top of the diagram is an options menu consisting of 6 menu items that thematically summarize and offer all of the functions for editing a diagram that an efficiency-oriented user could wish for. Let's create a professional diagram and move succinctly through this menu, moving against the clock from right to left. On the far right, we select Edit Data if we want to just adjust individual data points in the chart. A mini Excel window will now open showing the preset data. For very simple charts, we can now edit individual data points here if we wish. But most of the time, charts have much more data points, and therefore professional users don't want to edit the data manually now, but rather link it to a data source in Excel and display the Excel data over the chart in PowerPoint. This can be done under the next menu item next to it, Data. We can set an Excel link here. I'll now take this data from the spreadsheet. And in this dialog, the user can set it so that the data in the chart will be updated automatically when the presentation with the chart opens, or that the linking path between the presentation and the Excel spreadsheet should be relative, meaning that the linking will still work when the pair of Excel and PowerPoint file is moved to another location. We now set the linking and see how the data is now mapped to the chart. Using the following menu items, properties, we can make general settings to the diagram. For example, if we want to change the font size, or the width of the columns or bars, depending on the chart, or Perhaps we want to display a legend in the chart. We can show a title or show the primary value axis. The series menu item can be used to make settings that affect a data series. The simplest exercise is to change the color of a data series or to automatically color negative data points in a specific color. However, we will revisit this menu in a moment because other options are also selectable in this area depending on the chart type. The data label options give users the ability to make various settings to the data labels. For example, it is possible to show the column total or the number format of the primary value axis can be set, or show or hide the data labels, or show a background for the data labels for those data labels where this is necessary because they would otherwise be not easy to read. In addition, you can change the label to a percent or a value if needed. And user-defined settings to the data labels are also possible so that all your wishes can be fulfilled and users have the freedom that they require. Under the menu item lines, there is the possibility to insert lines and arrows. For example, we need a growth arrow here to show the growth from the beginning to the end of the waterfall diagram. To do this, simply drag the arrow with the mouse from one data point to the other. On the left, you can easily control whether the growth should be displayed absolutely, relatively, or user-controlled. Color adjustments to arrows are also possible, of course. Unfortunately, there is still a mixture of large and comparative small values in the diagram, which means that the data points with small values do not appear visually harmonious compared to the data points with large values. And the data labels of the small values are also not legible because they overlap. To improve this circumstance, users can also insert breaks via the software to cut out a portion of the large columns and make the small data points comparatively larger visually, thus making the entire chart harmonious. So this chart is now done. Let's do another example and take a stack column chart. And here we can also connect this to an Excel table. Here we see that the result, which of course does not look good just yet, we have to adjust the diagram further. Now the menu item series comes into play again. Here you can see that there are more options. In this case, we want to display the data series output because we assume that this is something like a stock price, not as a column but as a line. In addition, we want to measure the values of this data series on a secondary axis. And we set the line color to red so that this is more visible. The result is still visually unattractive now because the values of the data point overlap and are not easy to read. This is due to the axis settings. So now we extend the scale of the primary axis to create some space and to display the diagram better. And so this chart, which was also created in a few seconds, is now perfect. Last but not least, let's look at creating a Gantt chart. We will again select the placeholder and then the appropriate chart type. Here, the user now gets a dialog in which he can set how the diagram should be designed. This again saves time because there is no need for subsequent formatting. For example, we want certain header settings and other region settings so that the header and date format are displayed correctly. And decide on a plan with 2 phases and 3 task areas per phase because our project is divided into 6 project steps as we see here. And we pop up a note area so we can make the notes and set the status markers, and then we can confirm all of the details. Now you can see here how the diagram has been inserted and is perfectly formatted. All the user has to do now is drag the individual project steps with the mouse, which is very easy. Of course, there is also the option to insert milestones or highlighting an area that you want to mark. Lines can also be added, date lines for a deadline, for example. Or connecting lines between individual tasks. The user can, by fixing the connecting lines, you can do that via this option. The user can also ensure that they can also be moved together in the X direction, and they can, for example, also make it clear that this is a fixed sequence of the tasks that must be processed one after the other. In the notes area, the user can write text or use Harvey balls or perhaps traffic light symbols to record the current progress of each project step. In addition, the user can set how much space should be given to which area of the Gantt chart and other areas of the chart with these settings. One more point, which is really important for users who like to work with Excel as much as possible. You should know it's even possible to create and complete a Gantt chart. Instead of creating it manually as shown here, we can link it to Excel. To do this, again, we select the menu item, Data, select the corresponding Excel table, and find a table that we can use to create our Gantt chart with it. We again select the area and add an Excel link to map out the data over the chart. And thus this Gantt chart is now ready in just a few seconds. So let's summarize on the topic. Content creation brings tremendous value for all the users who make charts on a regular basis, but especially for those who don't make charts regularly because they're just not familiar with it. Whether you're a power user or not, with content creation, we have raised your level of proficiency. Users can draw perfect diagrams of any kind in just a few minutes and have much more time to create on the really important tasks instead of creating tedious diagram adjustments. So back to our overview. Now that we've divided into creating new slides and diagrams, let's take a look at how you can automate reports with content creation. Management reports. What is fundamentally difficult in connection with this now? You have to create a lot of objects like charts and tables, and there are a lot of links to data from Excel. Not only is this hard to create all of these objects and make sure everything looks neat, but you also have to create and manage all of these links, which sometimes it could be just chaotic. And sometimes you really can't just see through the chaos either. It's usually coupled with constant time pressure, which exists naturally due to the essence of deadlines. And the more chaos and the more time pressure, the more explosive the situation can become. All because there is less and less time for A, creating content, and B, checking all the content and the links for all of the accuracy and making sure everything is up to date. We now look at how you can solve these challenges. Challenge A, content creation. Let's take this example. This is an excerpt from a classic report that needs to be updated quarterly, maybe even monthly or weekly. And let's now assume that we are in the middle of creating this report right now under time pressure and need to create content. I'm not going to show you the chart creation again because the charts here were all just created as quickly and easily as you just saw in the demonstration. So you can already imagine that the ease of creating these elements with content creation has already eased our time pressure considerably. We are now rather focusing on the fact that something is obviously missing here on this slide, namely a table. And because we want to work efficiently, we would like to have the table created quickly and linked to Excel, where it's updatable. At this point, a short digression. Microsoft Office is extremely uncomfortable when creating linked tables because there is only one choice between two unsatisfactory possibilities. Option A, embedding a table in PowerPoint. This table can be updated, but it looks unattractive and can hardly be transformed into an attractive element in Microsoft Excel, or only with hair-raising formatting work. Or option B, paste data by copy-paste from Excel into a nicely designed PowerPoint table, which then, however, lacks the automatic update capability because there is no link due to the missing embedding, so that data always, every time the data is updated, has to be updated manually via copy-paste from Excel to PowerPoint. In this context, it is now exciting that the content creation helps to create appealing looking tables in a flash, which can then be linked to Excel at the same time and are also, therefore, updatable. Let's take a look at this together now. Slightly different from the charts, we now right-click on the empty table template and have the option to create an Excel link in the menu that appears. We select this option and then come to the already known procedure. Select data source, select range to be linked from Excel, and confirm OK. The nice thing now, the numbers from Excel are displayed perfectly looking in the PowerPoint table, so we have no effort at all, neither with creating a table, nor with formatting efforts, or with ever-prone copy-paste of data. In other words, we just eliminated 3 time wasters with 1 stone. By the way, linking text from a single cell in an Excel sheet to a text field in PowerPoint works just as easy as linking tables. Here, for example, we want to display the KPIs, and 1 is still missing. Here again, select the Excel linking on the desired field so that the number also inserts on the slide. So all the charts and tables in this presentation section are linked to Excel, and we turn challenge B mentioned earlier, checking all of the content and links for correctness as well as updating the data, because after all, we still need to do that. In terms of checking content, we don't support you. You do that yourself, but better because you now have more time for this really important issue due to the quick creation of all elements as shown. However, we will support you in checking all of the links as well as updating the data. Again, let's briefly look at what we would have to ask ourselves if we didn't have content creation in place, and then look at how content creation solves the challenges. Without the assistance, we would have to ask ourselves and manually check which links are in the presentation at all. Do all of the links still work? Or maybe they don't because someone else may have moved them, deleted them, or changed the source file. And when was the last update of the numbers in the presentation actually done? That is, how up to date are the numbers actually? As you can see, it is a lot of work. So one option would be to check and verify everything manually, but the much better approach is to use a professional Excel link manager. The Excel Link Manager shows users every link to every target and also where on a slide a linked object is located. It offers direct access to the data source via link 1. It shows when the last update took place and offers the possibility to set whether updates of the data should take place automatically when opening the presentation or manually controlled. Here we have now set the manual update. With the Link Manager, we now have the possibility to update all of the links with one click and thus update the entire report. If you wanted to, you could have chosen the automatic update. Then the update you just saw would have happened automatically when you opened the presentation. The Excel Link Manager also shows if a link is no longer working, for example, because a source file has been moved. In other words, all of the checking and updating work is gone totally, eliminated. The user does not have to check anything and does not have to worry about missing anything or wrong updates. The software takes care of this automatically, and there is always transparency over all of the links with the Link Manager. But there is even more time saving. A very common case in companies is that the links to the Excel files have been changed to a new file in regular intervals because there is a new Excel statement with fresh data every week, for example, coming from SAP or another program. Provided that the structure of the old and the new Excel file to which the elements in this presentation are to be linked is the same, All of the links in the presentation can now be changed to the new file with one click. So there you have seen it. One click instead of hundreds. A pristine example of saving your organization precious time. The user is, of course, happy that they did not have to do all of this tedious and boring work manually, link by link, and they could concentrate much more and stress-free on the actual content and the correctness of all figures. So now you have seen how you can automate your reporting with content creation and streamline it by many man-hours. Last but not least, let's now take a look at a toolbox that every power user will love in PowerPoint, and which will mean that users will never have to do time-consuming formatting work again. And that's exciting because at the end of the day, it's always the formatting work that the users almost never factor in. And in reality, it's the work that takes up the most of our time. Formatting work includes all the work that aims to arrange and align objects on slides in relation to each other. They always start with the frustrating realization that the slides would look better if everything was proportional and straight. Traditional PowerPoint works involves trying to straighten by hand and eye using guides and PowerPoint's 400% zoom and so on and so forth. These time-consuming and error-prone steps are now all a thing of the past because content creation includes layout tools and the familiar quick access bar that allow you to align elements on a slide perfectly and in just a few seconds. Let's demonstrate some examples of this now. As a small introduction, we have 5 elements on this slide. Let's take away 4 of them and look at some basics with one element. If we take a placeholder, insert, we can also see exactly what happens if we reposition this element, for example. Top left, top right, bottom left, or right in the middle. Moving the element back to the top left and adding the other elements again. We can observe that the same effect works just as well with multiple elements. If we enlarge this left element a bit and assume we want all the other elements to be the same size, we can also achieve that with a single click. But now the elements are no longer in alignment. We therefore select all of the elements and choose the so-called reference shape with a single click. Now all the other objects on the slide will be oriented to this reference shape when we use one of the layout tools. And so the other 4 shapes move directly in line with the reference shape when we select the center vertically function. Now let's take a real slide example from real life. Here you can already see what's going on. The workspace of the slide is not completely filled to the top, and on the right there is a block that does not have the same distance to its neighbor as otherwise all the blocks have to their neighbors on the side. Now with this slide alone, it would take 5 to 10 minutes of wasted time if done halfway neatly. We're done here in just 3 clicks. First, fit to area. Second, mark all shapes. Third, equal spacing. Done. We're on to the next slide. On the next slide, the spacing is neither horizontal nor vertical. However, we will finish just as quickly. Select content, trim horizontally, trim vertically, and we're done. Here is another classic case. The task is to multiply this shape to a total of 6 shapes, which then fill the whole slide, so that we can then, for example, put pictures inside the shapes and thus create a new, nicer picture slide. With the problem, how big can a shape be so that it fits into 2 rows 3 times next to each other on the slide and with equal distances to each other? Every user wastes time, no matter how good or experienced they are. With the layout tools, this is child's play. We multiply the shape into 6 identical shapes, automatically place them into 2 rows 3 times next to each other, and automatically adjust the size and position of the 6 shapes to the workspace. Of course, using identical distance between the shapes. In other words, the work is done with just a click. Here again, an absolute classic. We have 3 columns of boxes on the slide. but we need one more column of boxes. We can copy and paste more boxes, but then we have to manually drag all of the boxes to a smaller size, reposition them, make sure everything is straight, and so on. This takes at least a few minutes, but only if you have it in PowerPoint. Otherwise, it will take even longer. Now we just have the additional column of boxes, place them next to the slide, next to the boxes on the slide, and with one click, we are done here as well. As you can see, the layout tools solve a wide range of situations and are a huge saving mechanism for time and stress for the user. Users can immediately focus on the content they want to make, thus enhancing the effectiveness and importance of the presentation and their business. Now, before we get to some final efficiency tools, a quick message to anyone who often needs special characters as well as smart objects. These are also offered by Content Creation. Among the elements in the Content Creation ribbon, you'll find the special characters, so you don't have to search for them on Google or anywhere else, but also elements to make the presentations more expressive and easier to understand. There are Harvey balls, where you can easily and precisely determine the degree of fillings, traffic lights and symbols, you can change the color with just a click, checkboxes that are empty, checked or unchecked, and stamps that can be used to transport a status. So that the viewer then also knows what the status of the content is here. Finally, here are a few absolute efficiency tools. So follow me into this situation I'm about to describe, and maybe you'll recognize some aspects of this situation in your everyday work. So you've spent what feels like ages on this presentation and invested an incredible amount of time and effort, and then shortly before the presentation date, your boss comes into the office and says, for example, "Oops, we've unfortunately forgot one more topic, and it has to go into this presentation because tomorrow I'll be standing on the big stage." It happens, and you know that's a stressful feeling, right? So let's get started. When you create the new slides, you won't spend much time designing them. That's quick and easy with Content Creation, as we've just seen, but you will, of course, have to make some considerations about the content, and that will take you some time. What else do you need to do after you've completed the new slides and incorporated them into the presentation? Well, first thing is you're going to need to adjust the topic list on the agenda overview, as well as any page number information in the agenda, because yes, the presentation now has more topics and therefore more pages than before. If you have used chapter separated pages like here, then you do this work several times and waste your time over and over again. And this is exactly the last kind of detailed work you want to deal with in this stressful situation. With Content Creation, the whole process is very quick. You just go to the agenda wizard, add a topic, and then with one click, you have updated the topic list as well as the page numbers on all of the agenda slides automatically. So now we're done. Last but not least, in the presentation, you can automatically remove all notes, comments, and animations if there are any, and then the share feature here really comes into play. Here you can save a single slide from the presentation or the whole entire presentation as a PowerPoint file or a PDF. Either at a place of your choice, or you can send it directly as a new email that is easily attached. Again, you can see that we've streamlined the process, saving you many clicks and a number of tedious tasks. Hopefully by now you understand and agree that Empower's Content Creation enables the user to truly maximize their efficiency and proficiency when creating PowerPoint presentations. The tools, the shortcuts, the easy access, the tech. Content Creation lets you easily draw professional diagrams with ease, automate reports, and eliminates tedious formatting work in Microsoft PowerPoint. In other words, you can minimize and culminate all of the time wasters we described earlier and now put it towards what matters most, creating content. So this concludes our demonstration of Empower's Content Creation. We sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Hopefully the information was informative and useful. If you would like to discuss your specific challenges and how implementation could work within your company, please be sure to contact us. We look forward to the opportunity of connecting and discussing the solutions that are right for you. Thanks again for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.